And now we're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Live Reality Games. And we are here continuing our coverage for Survivor Angelica, Blessings and Curses. As always, I'm Parker Barnett, and I'm joined by my blessing of a co-host, Nathan. Nathan, how you doing?
I'm good. No curses as of late, thankfully. We're having some nice weather down here in the Hoosier territory.
Very
How are you
good.
doing?
Doing well. It's spring weather in Texas. What can I say? Just this week alone, we had 70-degree heat, and then it rained for 2 days straight. So that's just how it goes. I don't have the same luck with weather that you seem to, but very excited to talk about these two episodes. Two really fun one, I might add. And by the end of it, we lost 3 people. But well, before we get into all that, let's introduce our guests. Returning back on the podcast, we had him before. He was so good, we invited him back. We got Ty. Ty, how you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, all blessings over here as well. Yeah, I'm in Chicago as well. So I'm this weather today is but yeah, the best you can get for March in this area of the country. So yeah, I was out playing softball. Got to go outside and do stuff this morning. So yeah, having a great day. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
And I'm glad your weather is about as good as it can be, Ty.
Yep.
And Jason, we also have Jason joining us. It's his first time on the podcast this season. Happy you could join us. Jason, what's going on?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Just like you all, I'm experiencing awesome weather here in Philly. I went for a 4-mile run this morning. It's high 60s. You can't beat that for early March. So yeah, I'm excited to be on the pod.
I believe that because I was just in Philly a couple of months ago and it rained quite a bit. I was there for a weekend. I think it rained every day. Great trip otherwise. But yes, I that is the best weather from my limited experience from Philly. I would agree with that.
Here I am feeling good about myself going outside and playing softball. Just like I ran 4 miles. No big deal.
Nathan, how was your 4-mile run?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Well, we have a lot to get into.
Speaking of diverse weather, it's so weird in these live games to me. The level of variety in weather I feel like we get, where between like the 3 minutes between challenge to camp, I feel like there's a massive difference in the level of rain and all of that. Did you notice that, Parker?
It did seem like at one point the ground had some mist from rain from the night before, but didn't rain that hard. Then the next shot, there's some rain on the ground. People are grabbing onto each other, trying not to trip in the mud. I did notice that a little bit.
Yeah, that second day it rained for not for too long. Just like during that challenge, during that
Yeah.
the partners challenge, it rained quite a bit. But fortunately, we had cabins to stay inside, and just I guess there's someone else you have to ask about sleeping outside. None of it. I didn't have to sleep outside.
That's the LRG curse, I swear. I cannot count how many times we've filmed a challenge at Reelfoot. And it just so happens to be the one in an open field with no trees covering us. And that's when it starts pouring down rain relentlessly.
It's hard. I have any production team that can film in the rain. Props to them because it's really not easy. You're trying to keep your phone or the camera equipment dry. Players are trying not to get hurt. It's a lot, but we have a lot to talk about with these two episodes 9 and 10. And first, I want to talk because it's his first time on the podcast. Always like to ask the guest, Jason, how did you find out about Angelica?
I'm relatively new to the LRG community. I started in summer of 22 and just played one game, and then I fell in love, and I just started doing research on Facebook. I think like anybody else, and kind of just went to the LRG. I was on your page, and then some of the casting pages, and I saw Angelica, so I started going through their YouTube, and I was like, this is really really cool. So I applied, and here I am.
Jason, I want to get your take on who you were working with at this point in the game, because I feel like we've seen a lot of you because you've had to go to a lot of tribal councils in the pre-merge, but I don't think we've gotten a complete sense of who all you're working with. Can you just go through that up to this point in the early merge, who you thought your closest allies were?
Yeah, prior to the swap, I was really attached to Jabbar. I felt like him and I had a really good connection, and he was really from Old Loa the only person that I trusted fully um, at the time. And then the swap happened, and I managed to get my way in with Matt and Kai and Jordan, and that was really my solid four. I knew that if I was going to get through the swap into the merge, I had to latch on to them and just be trustworthy and honest and kind of be, kind of be a good soldier. And knowing Matt from a previous game helped. I don't know if he told you that or not, but Matt and I had a bit of a relationship in a previous game, so that helped. And I feel like that was my ticket to at least get to merge, and then maybe I could do something different when I got to merge.
Ty, I want to ask because it does ultimately come into your decision later on about voting for Jared, but at this stage in the game, there's so many more OG Bakas than Loa. And you talked about you when you in your final words, you didn't feel like you were in the hierarchy of that, or you didn't feel like that was your best move to just go straight to the end with Baka. Why did you feel that way? And did you get the sense that anyone else wanted to turn against Baka, or was it just you?
No, I think that people wanted to turn against it. I think it's just a matter of like finding the right timing for that, and that timing is different for everyone. Everyone has a different timing of when they think the right time to make that move, if they want to make that move. Is I understand like Jason was in that spot where that's who you were rolling with. I feel like that four was tighter, and then out of I know that Jared is closer with Jordan. I know that Sandra is closer with Jordan, and they're closer with each other than they are with me. I've developed a pretty good relationship with Jabbar and Alejandro after our switch and after going on to Loa. So I feel like my best shot with people that will want to go deeper with me was with them. And so, we'll get into like when that actually happens. But when it came time to make that move, I felt like there were other people on the hierarchy before, or the like pecking order of people that were about to go out that would have gone out before Alejandro. And then when those people won immunity, Jason and Ashley together at the same time, it was like now we got to go. Now it's time. Now is the time. And tons of issues, execution very poor, but that's really what it came down to. And I didn't want to be a part of like a pagonging where it was just like people rolling over. If I was the top of it and people were listening to me, then great, like I'd roll with that. But I thought my best move was that, and it just didn't come to fruition the way that I had envisioned it in my head.
Nathan, we start the episode, we get official confirmation, not that I thought it was going away, but we get confirmation the banking system is going to continue through the merge. Nathan, how has the banking system been for you as a viewer? Because I think it's really fun. I don't think it reminds me a lot of Fire tokens, and well, in CBS Winners at War, they didn't really come into play at all, because I don't know if they really were explained properly to the players, so I don't know if they wanted to use them. But how's the banking system been for you, Nathan? How long do you think it's going to go for?
So I think the banking system is just kind of what you were saying, a very natural extension of Fire tokens. And I think had the pandemic not happened, it's probably we would have gotten something very, very similar on 41. I really like it more now that people could go more than once. And I could be wrong on this. The way Jason was saying it, host Jason, not guest Jason, it sounds like people can go as many times as they want now. Is that the case? Or is there still a thing where everyone has to go twice before you can go?
Now that everyone's been, I think it's free. It's open.
I kind of like that. I think winning immunity now is more important than ever.
Oh yeah, I mean, as we saw, Jared wins immunity in the episode 10, and he just sends himself because he had the ability to. So anybody who wins immunity can just openly be selfish now. They don't even have to pretend like, oh, I'm going to send you because I really want to do you a favor. I just really like you. And that's probably true for some people. But I feel like most of the time when people were sending people to the fortune teller's booth, it's because they had to. They had to pick somebody, and they tried to make the best out of it. Like, oh, I did that because I really like you. and which everyone would rather it be them than sending someone else. So I think you're right, Nathan. I think immunity is really more important now, and I like that it ties into the fortune teller's booth, who wins immunity. I think that's a clever continuation of it into the individual stage.
I think I understand why they had that rule in place that you couldn't go more than once, because you don't want a situation like with if you had like a sugar who goes like 8 times, and you have like, okay, this is Bill, he's at the merge with 3 immunity idols and 2 extra votes, and he has to cast 2 of those publicly. The whole works.
No, it was the right decision to. Well, I enjoyed the decision to having everyone go at once. I just think I agree with you. It's a natural progression for the individual stage. I also liked this just reminded me of what you can get away with on YouTube doing Survivor formatted episodes rather than on CBS. In the first 15 seconds, Veronica just says the F word uncensored. I just thought that was hilarious that they included that.
We had a couple potty mouths on our season.
A couple. I've noticed that.
Oh, we speak from experience. The last live game that we filmed, we got kicked off of Facebook twice because people on the cast were swearing too much. It was very funny.
Jason, who are the biggest potty mouths out there? They know who they are. This isn't embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, Veronica clearly, I think, is number one. I don't have the best vocabulary because I'm a sailor, but I felt like I kind of tamed it a little bit just for the cameras. But I would say outside of confessionals, I was pretty bad. Kai was pretty bad. As she got into like day 2, she started to, you could tell it was starting to get her, a little, her emotions moving. So I would say Kai and Veronica were pretty bad.
Sandra.
Oh yeah.
Sandra's got that Boston.
I forgot about Sandra.
I'm just the only one I'm surprised by that is Kai, because every time we see Kai, she's like, "I love all these people. I'm just so thankful for the experience." Maybe I missed in a previous episode, but I did not get that impression.
She got stung by the bee. I'm sure she swore at a bee that stung her.
I also would swear at that.
Just wait for the next couple episodes. I'm sure you'll see a shift in Kai.
I cannot wait to see it. This is just another note. So followed by the Veronica going to the bank, we get some more confessionals recapping what happened the last round, just giving us context and what everyone was thinking. And one that I thought was funny more so than insight on strategy, Nathan and I were talking about before we got on, was Matt. Matt was talking about how he's lied more in the last 3 minutes than he has in his life. And I don't have the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, "I cheated on the 3rd grade spelling test. I'm not ashamed to admit it." Nathan, Matt's been a lot of fun in these confessionals.
Oh, 100%. I think that's more, I don't know if it's more damning of that 3 minutes of his life or more uplifting for the rest of his life, because your entire life you've told fewer lies than that 3 minutes. That's an impressive feat right there.
I think it's excusable. The game of Survivor causes a lot of lying, I think it means he's an upstanding citizen if he can go that long.
His survival challenge game must have just been so loyal and trustworthy.
Yeah. You stay tuned for that one too. You'll see about that. Matt's a character. I love Matt, and he was constant comedy out there, and he was our fire tender. So I mean, he was helping us in that way. But he's a phenomenal person to play with.
I've always said that, even in some of these live games, as long as a fire is incorporated, even if there's really next to no camp life stuff to do, if you have to tend to a fire, whoever can at least make the fire gets a lot of currency early on. Doesn't mean they're going to go to the end, doesn't mean they're going to win necessarily, but I'm the type of guy who, if you can make the fire really well for me, I'll keep you around. Nathan, am I wrong on that?
Well, it's the old adage of famously, we heard someone say about LRGs that being good around camp equates to picking up sticks.
Yes,
and
right.
I do think there's a lot of validity to that. You don't really need to be that good outdoorsy. Just grab general foliage and you'll be okay.
You know what it is though, especially with Angelica, because the elements weren't terrible because obviously we had cabins, but having something about having a fire and Matt is always there making it, tending it, and people sit around it just for like that social aspect. I feel like it gave Matt a little bit of an advantage of just talking to everybody, because at some point everybody wanted to go sit by the fire, and it gave him an opportunity just to kind of connect. And it didn't have to be like, oh, Matt's keeping us warm or anything like that, but it just gave him that bit of an advantage because he was always by the fire, which seems to be a community building thing.
So we do have a very interesting take on the immunity challenge in episode 9. You guys are going to compete in pairs, and the pair that wins is both going to win individual immunity. First, I have a question. I might have missed it. Were the pairs just determined randomly, or were they determined by the players?
It was random.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought.
We drew cards, and whoever got them like matching cards. Yeah.
Okay, and first of all, I'm always a proponent of when they're early in the merge, if there's 10, 11, however many people, giving more than one person immunity. I always enjoy that. I think it gives the minority alliance more chances at winning. I like that it keeps people on their toes, means less people can be voted for. Now, if it's final 8 or 7, obviously you probably shouldn't be giving 2 people immunity. But when there's this many people, I don't think it can hurt anything. Nathan, what was your take on this challenge?
So I generally don't like pair challenges post-merge for immunity. And the problem with them oftentimes is that if someone is in the minority and they're paired with someone in the majority, the person in the majority can just throw the challenge. But the reason why I don't actually think that's a problem here is twofold. One of which is that live games just function a lot differently. This is so shortly after the merge that I don't think anyone really wants to be in jeopardy and is willing to take one for the team in that way. And second, with it being such a relatively short game, I don't think the alliances are set in stone enough for anyone to really set up to throw a challenge here. So I was fine with it.
I agree. And it keeps them on their toes. And like I said, if this was like Final 4 or Final 5 and they're paired together for XYZ reasons, and it's like so clear that this person is going to win, we need to make sure they don't win immunity, we can't let them get to the end, that's different. But otherwise, this isn't for $1 million. Of course, everyone wants to win, but it makes a lot more sense to me to try to sabotage someone in a challenge in a game for $1 million versus this, where yes, it's important and we want to win, but it's not life-changing at the end of the day in terms of a financial gain. Jason, Ty, Jason, this challenge goes very well for you, but I want to hear both of y'all's strategies that y'all had to do in your pairs. Ty, your pair strategy, and Jason, your pair strategy.
Our Sandra went first, and it took her a long time to get to me with the ball on the platform. So I felt like everyone was like already gone, but everyone was really struggling with it. No one more so than Alejandro, clearly. But Sandra struggled with it for a long time, and then when we actually eventually got together, our strategy was just to keep the tube as flat as possible. I kind of held it more toward my end so I could keep it flat, and then when it dropped, we just dropped it in. And then I did not have any sort of great strategy in the second leg with rolling the ball down. I was not good at that, and by the time I had almost figured it out, Jason had won. So I don't know. I would love to hear Jason's strategy for that little, I don't even know what you call it, the little long spatula that you're catching the balls on.
Yeah, the paddle. So I knew that I could do that challenge. I knew that I had pretty good skill in that, and being able to hold it at the base was helpful. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue. I think Ashley had told me that she was probably going to have a bit of a tough time with the balancing part in the very beginning. That's why we had her go first. And then, thankfully she managed to beat, Alejandro, and I think was it Sandra who was left, or maybe Jabbar, somebody who didn't make it through the first round. But I think I knew that we'd be fine with the two part. And it was really going to come down to if Ashley could could balance quick, and then how fast I can get those balls on the paddle. But I was confident that I would be able to do that. So yeah, just kind of fell in our favor, I guess.
Nathan, you and I have seen this paddle for a few seasons now covering Angelica. It's like one of their classic challenges, and it looks a lot of fun. Do you have a sense of how you would do in that challenge with the paddle?
I think there's a key strategy to this challenge that I haven't heard anyone actually bring up. It's very practical. It's called "Don't Drink Caffeine" for 8 months before playing. This to me just reeks of I'm a caffeine addict. My hands are shaky as all can be. So anyone who needs their coffee or their carbonation would have troubles in this challenge.
I don't think I would do poorly, but I mean, anytime I've participated in a challenge, whether it's holding things like this or doing some sort of endurance balancing, not been my thing. So I don't think I would do particularly
didn't you win
well.
this challenge or something? Or am I misremembering this? I feel like you did a challenge similar to this.
I've done challenges similar. I didn't win. I wish I won.
What do we think was the hardest part of this challenge, would you say? Like the whole panel. What do we think was...
Walking with the ball on it was actually really, I mean, it took me a while. I mean, if anyone was like good at it, they would have like blown past Sandra and I. Like we would not. We were pretty far behind the first two pairs, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it was that part was really hard. I think if I had like really thought about, I don't have a very steady hand, so that part was always going to be hard. But then the paddle at the end, I think if I had used the base a little bit longer, like Jason said, he had kind of like figured it out immediately, and I didn't see it. So wouldn't have been super hard if I had realized that immediately.
Yeah, definitely that first walk was the toughest for sure.
Nathan, before we get to the fortune teller's booth, I just looked at my notes. I forgot about this. This is a very minor thing, but I want to shout it out for the crew editing these episodes. Before they get to the challenge, there's this great B-roll footage of the forest I'm assuming where they're at, and then a close-up on a leaf. It just reminded me of the B-roll footage you see on CBS Survivor. And I know that's a very minor thing, but it really ties it together, making you emulate the Survivor experience. And given your background, Nathan, in film and shooting things, I figured you'd appreciate that.
See, Parker knows me too well. This is... I promise I'm probably one of the only people who watch that and goes, ooh, that's some good B-roll right there. I loved the leaves. I loved the rain. I loved the transition, the whole shebang. Anytime you can work in B-roll that fits, I don't know if they actually shot that on location. I don't know if they pulled it from stock footage. Either way, it blended in perfectly. So anyway, yeah, that's me gushing about the B-roll for this podcast. We'll stay tuned until next time.
I am too. I didn't just bring it up because I knew you'd like it. I knew you'd like it, but I also enjoyed it. And one thing
but by the way, before we move past this, it's actually a funny story here. My dad makes fun of me whenever we watch movies or TV. He'll just point at a shot and go, "Oh, Nate, that's some good B-roll, isn't it?" This is a running joke in my family.
I enjoyed it too. I wanted to shout out the editors. It's those little things that tie it together. But that's funny. I didn't know that your dad does that. That is something your dad would do, knowing him. So we're going to get to the fortune teller's booth. And this one is pretty interesting. We're going to get Jared and Matt going. And they're both going to get what I consider a curse. Just one is probably more substantial than the other. Jared is going to get 2 hexes going forward. And Matt is going to have to cast a public vote in front of everybody at the next tribal council. Nathan, perhaps, and this might be a question for the panel, so I want to ask our 2 guests here. But first, I want to come to you, Nathan. Given that the vote does ultimately land on Alejandro, when Matt does go up to vote for Alejandro in front of everybody, I kind of thought that was risky. Unless Alejandro just knew he was getting votes anyway, and he was going to play an idol if he had one, and the other players knew that. I was kind of surprised Matt would just be like, "Yeah, I'm voting Alejandro." Did you get that same oppression,
So
Nathan?
what did you think he was gonna do? Do you think he was gonna like throw his vote? Do you think that was the idea?
Well, no, I was just surprised. I was under the impression I wasn't sure if Alejandro knew he was getting votes. So
Oh.
in my mind, if Alejandro is still wondering if he's getting votes or not, Matt almost outright confirming it could have been risky and he could have played an idol. But if everyone is confident Alejandro doesn't have anything, or they're just assuming if Alejandro has something, he's going to play it anyway. It doesn't matter if Matt has a vote. That's just what surprised me. So, panel, I'd love to hear what y'all's thoughts on that were.
Yeah, I don't think I knew about Matt's public vote thing. I don't think I was
Okay.
in. I don't think I knew that that was going to happen. If I did, then I knew. I think everybody kind of knew that Alejandro was going to be getting votes there. I think Alejandro was pretty aware that he was going to be getting votes. But yeah, it could have been a really dangerous move to do that if there was any potential of him having something or something like that. So I guess based on the numbers, they didn't think there was enough wiggle room. Jason, I don't know if you were, if did y'all discuss in y'all's side about like him voting another way or throwing it a different direction to confuse anything?
Not at all. I don't even think we put a lot of strategy thought into it. I think we just discussed what we wanted to do, and then I think Matt was just like, I'm just going to vote for who I'm going to vote for. I don't think we didn't really talk about the ramifications of doing it or anything like that. And shame on us, because if he had something, I mean, we would have just tipped him off, right? So, but I think we didn't even think of it. I mean, that's how terrible our strategy.
Well,
And
and
then,
Well, and I can totally see the argument from Matt's perspective as well. It's like, hey, I'm voting publicly. Why throw a random vote on Ashley or Jabbar or whoever and just make them mad when it doesn't matter? You know, why? That just hurts Matt's game more. I totally understand that argument of it. Why throw a vote if it's not going to matter? And like you said, if knowing Alejandro was pretty aware he was going to get votes, you know, the majority alliance is thinking he's going to play something anyway. So it doesn't hurt too bad at the end of the day. My thought, Nathan, was just, oh man, this could be really bad if there is no other votes going on to anybody other than Alejandro. Alejandro and one or two other people can just vote for someone else, which we'll get to in a second. That's where Ty comes in. It could have been really bad for Jared, but that was just my.
I
Go ahead.
actually think it's unlikely this would happen. I think you need a very specific aligning of stars and all of that. But I do think there is a scenario where this would actually be an advantage for an alliance if they had like the proper time to plan it out. Because if you're trying to scare someone into playing their idol when they don't need to, this might actually be really useful.
I agree. It can always help out. It could turn a curse into a blessing. Anything can be used to advantage depending on how you play it. It really can. That's how the game goes.
Parker,
But
hypothetically, would you rather have a disadvantage where you lose your vote or this thing where you have to do it publicly? What
does
would you
everyone
rather
know
get?
does everyone know I lost my vote?
Let's say it's like this where not everyone knows.
Okay. I mean,
What's the panel's opinion on this?
I think I'd rather vote.
Yeah,
So,
I'd always rather vote. I think it like you can mitigate the damages somewhat weird way if you have to.
yeah, I agree.
I think CBS should try this. They've done the losing, which I don't hate this as much as I think a lot of people do, but they've done the losing vote for so many seasons straight now. Why not mix it up a little bit with a public vote? You get a vote, but you have to do it publicly. I think that would actually be a little interesting. But Jason, I am curious from what you're understanding and what the people you were working with were thinking for this vote. Why specifically did it land on Alejandro, do you think, over, say, Jabbar or Ashley? Was this a threat level thing? Was this just a pure relationship thing and Alejandro had the short end of the stick? Where did Alejandro come in here?
Yeah, I think, well, Ashley was immune because her and I had one immunity. But she had always been kind of a target coming back from, obviously, because she had been voted out. She fought her way back. But I mean, I'm just from me speaking, I never trusted Alejandro from the very, very beginning. I didn't get a chance to connect with him too well. I didn't think that he was being truthful with me when we did talk. So I always had this like nagging thing in the back of my mind. It's like, I can't trust this guy. You know, amazing person, but I couldn't trust him in the game. So at that point, when Matt was like, what do you think about Alejandro? I'm like, easy, done. Because remember, I had a relationship with Jabbar, and I had still wanted to rekindle that, right? So that was that was a pretty easy vote for me to get behind, just because I never trusted him to begin with, and it didn't bloody my hands because it really wasn't my decision. I was just moving along with the plan.
So Ty, you have an idea of where the vote is going for this vote, but you decide to make your move here and use your extra vote on top of it. So walk us through why this vote in particular.
Yeah. So why this vote was what I alluded to earlier with, in my head, I feel like Ashley is going to be the next person, likely before Alejandro, if she had not won immunity. And then it might not have happened, but my other idea was going to be Jason, because I just had not developed that relationship with Jason, because I had never, we had barely talked until, we had not met until Merge. Immediately good vibes, and immediately felt like you have that trust because Jason is a great player, and just also like genuinely a loyal person and loyal player. So I thought that was a threat. So I thought that we could get like Jared and our group of swapped Loas to go after Jason if it really came to it. So I kind of had that idea of those two being ahead of where Alejandro was going to fall, because I would like to play with Alejandro. I wanted to keep it kind of the opposite of the way Jason felt with Alejandro in the game is how I felt with him. I wanted to continue that relationship. So I was like, all right, now's the time. I'm going to try and flip this, save someone that I feel like I could. And then for many reasons, which I can list, it did not work. One is that there was like no time. It was so fast. It was like literally like 15 minutes to do this big blindside move. It was never going to work, even if we had not been super sloppy with it. The other thing is like Matt's name was getting thrown in there too, because Alejandro probably would have preferred to do Matt. Ashley also would have preferred to do Matt. But I knew that Kai was not going to do Matt, and I needed Kai for this vote. I just did not realize how close the four people that just went to like 3 straight tribals together probably would be coming into this. Obviously, they're going to be very close. And I thought, because of the conversation that Kai, Alejandro, and I had, that she would be willing to work with that. And instead, she prioritized her relationship with Baca, which totally makes sense, totally understandable. But that's where she kind of deceived me. Jabbar went along with it, and they were kind of both on the same page of like, no, this isn't going to work. But in my head, the 5 of us, me, Alejandro, Ashley, Jabbar, and Kai were voting for Jared, and I was going to use my extra vote, and it was going to be 6-5, and I would be looking awesome, and it would have been a great, crazy move. And then it just did not work out. And I think I said it in the thing, but like it could have been even worse, because I almost wrote Yankees suck on the like parchment paper. That really would have blown up. Like it blew up my game anyway, but that really would have done it. So thankfully I didn't do that. But
wow.
Yeah,
just crapping on the baseball alliance even more.
Yeah, I just wanted, I knew it was all in fun too. But I was looking for a big move. I was trying to find my right place, and I went for a shot that probably wasn't had a low percentage hitting anyway, and I rolled the dice. Yeah.
Speaking of putting questionable things on the voting parchment, let's go ahead and transition to this.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you caught this.
What cracks me up is I pulled this screenshot. It looks photoshopped, but I swear this is the actual raw footage they had on there. It's so perfectly obscured. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And I love that they kept that whole thing in Alejandro's conversation with production about it, because when this doesn't happen often in games, but it can very well happen. Someone just flat out writes a name of someone who is not there. Then it's on production. Well, do you just give them an entirely new parchment, or do you say cross that out and write the actual name of the person you're trying to vote for? That's on a game to game thing. But it was just so funny, and I loved host Jason when he read. He said, "There's a lot going on here."
Yeah. Yeah,
to be fair to Alejandro, he did write down a contestant's name. It just wasn't the right contestant's name.
They should have left it. They're like, that is a person in the game, Alejandro. That's your vote. That would have just been cruel, though.
and Jabbar thought that he wrote his name and crossed it out a bunch. So Jabbar was like, "Oh, Alejandro wrote my name out before he went out." So he was like vindicated, like, "Yeah, I did the right thing in doing that vote and not going with you." It wasn't even him; it was he wrote Jordan on accident, which is the second time that's happened. Where they were calling. They're saying Jordan. Her name was Jordan. She didn't. I don't think she corrected anyone until the last day. But everyone was shouting Jordan in the blindfold challenge too when they meant Jared or vice versa. So like, people's names are getting all confused. Yeah, they're not the last time someone wrote the wrong name down on the parchment, as you see eventually. So it's like, yeah, it was wild. A whirlwind.
It just doesn't help that Jordan is also a unisex name, and so you have Jordan and Jared on the same team. It's a recipe for disaster, especially for people like me who are not great at names to begin with anyway. And I don't think I'd do that, but especially in a caller challenge with someone's blindfold, that'd be a disaster. Nathan, how are you with remembering names? I don't know if I've ever actually asked you this.
I'm horrendous. It's really a hindrance in my life. I do think we're getting like Australian Survivor 2018 levels of luck here, though, where like Shane, Sharn, and Shawnee all make it deep into the game. I think Jordan, Jason, and Jared all making it to the merge was quite
and Jabbar.
A stroke of luck. Oh, and Jabbar, yes.
So I do think, because Ty, correct me if I'm wrong, was this the first LRG you played or the second? Angelica?
This was the second.
Okay.
I've also played Survive. I played the first season of Survive in McHenry, Illinois. So that was my first game. At the same time, Jason said he played your first in summer 22, and then Angelica. This was my second. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, and that helps my perspective because I knew you'd played Survive. I just couldn't remember which one came first. Nathan, what Ty's talking about here really speaks to something that I've definitely thought about myself, where if you're playing your first game, there is a tendency for a lot of people, not all, but there's a tendency for a lot of people maybe sometimes to play it safe because they just want the experience so bad. They're having such a great time. Who knows if they're ever going to get to do this again? This is such a cool thing, and they want to go as far as humanly possible. And sometimes maybe that means they don't take a chance, even if it doesn't work out. Whereas if you play on your second or third time, you've already had the experience once. I think you're more likely, at least, to go for the jugular and make more moves. I think I've seen that a lot happen throughout LRGs. Have you seen that, Nathan? Would you agree with that?
It's definitely a mixture of exposure to LRGs and also just temperament. Because we say that with people on their first time, like they're more reserved, but I actually a lot of the time am in favor of casting people who know these shows very well. Because sometimes if you get the right person with the right temperament, their first instinct is going to be like, oh, this is how the game works. I'm going to burn it to the ground. Let's go hard. And they'll play in a way that a person who knows the show better just never would.
That's a good point. But so to your point, Ty, like I said, I don't know if that was your thought entirely with making the move, but I can see the logic in, look, I've had the experience. I loved it, and I'm loving this experience, but I'm also the type of person where it's like, I might get 4th, 5th, or 6th. That's great. I'll get a couple more hours, maybe another night into the game, but it's not going to help me win. So if that was part of your logic with trying to make the move now when there's a lot of pieces left on the board, so to speak, I can completely understand that. It may not have worked, but I don't fault you at all for at least going for the move. I know you listed the reasons why you thought it didn't work, and you're kicking yourself, but I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, you tried to make a move. That's more than a lot of people can say.
Yeah, no, I didn't really have a lot of. I had regrets of like execution wise, obviously. No real regrets for like going for it or making that move because I think people did want Jared out. It's just a matter of like the timing of it and making sure you have enough, thought behind why and the timing and double checking that everyone's on the same page. Like I never really fully had the conversation with Kai. So we were like walking to tribal and Alejandro's like, okay, so Matt, right? And I'm like, what? No, what do we do? No. And so at that point I should have just been like, all right, let's nip this and not. And then that's why you can see us like talking at tribal. Like I'm going back and forth to Jabbar over here and then Sandra's catching on. So Sandra's like, why are you talking to them so much? So I'm going back and forth like this. the whole tribal council, just making a mess, just back in the back, just making a mess. And then Jason, I look over at Jason, you're just like, you've got your whole buff up to your face, just like hiding. You're like, I'm not listening. Nothing's happening. You know, yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ty. I was going to ask Jason, why was the buff over the face? Was the smoke from the campfire facing you? Was that an intentional decision? What was that?
No, yeah, that was smoke. There was certain tribal councils, and I went to a lot of them. The wind shifted, and it was blowing smoke in our faces. So that was just a natural reaction to that. But Ty, to your point, I do want to tell you real quick. I think had we connected a little better early on, I might have been on board with your plan because I knew that Jared was dangerous also. So I do respect the move 100%. And I was very on the fence with it. It was just too early for me. And I hadn't connected with you enough to really fully trust you. But yeah, I mean, to Nathan and Parker's point, taking a big swing like that is respectable, and it's something that gets people further in games. So I would have been on board, I think, had we connected.
Yeah. Yeah. I told Alejandro, because we were the ones having the conversation first, are we doing, I told him, I was like, what if I had an extra vote and I saved you? And that's when he freaked out. Camera didn't catch that. Then that's when Camera came over and he was like, all right, I'm going to tell Jason, right? And I was like, no, so kudos to you for playing that, since you said you didn't trust him. He trusted you, and he went and told you about it. I was like, don't tell Jason. Then it came back, and I knew you had found out about it. And you tried to nicely tell me, hey, maybe don't do this right now. It's not gonna work probably. And I was like, nah, I'm doing it.
I still thought that you and I could do something, right? I still wanted to keep you there because I did have that cool vibe with you, and it was just fairly early on. So I was like, you might want to hold off on that, but
yeah. Hindsight, yeah.
Hey, good for you, man. You had the confidence to take that swing.
Appreciate it. Swing and a miss, but appreciate it.
Well, it's better than the system like you have in something like Big Brother, where people are just hanging around hoping to get more Instagram followers or get more money from Cameo. So I appreciate this. Let's go all out. I don't care if I get 6th place versus 9th place or what have you.
Hey, listen, it's in that mindset. Once upon a time, I played a game and someone told me that if in his mindset, he would rather go home first if he can't win, which I wouldn't say that necessarily. But to his point, it's like all the other placements in between don't really matter for him. He was playing to win. And I think there's a lot to respect in that mindset. But anything else, Nathan, or the panel from episode 9 before we jump to episode 10?
We missed. I forgot to mention my favorite Jared quote from this, where he went to the fortune booth. He said, "Man, I can't wait for Halloween." I really enjoyed that.
My favorite thing about it is it's so random. He stands up and we can't see his mouth. He just walks off. Oh, I can't wait for Halloween.
Yeah, that they had a good time in the fortune teller. Eventually, I think he got to know him pretty well in there the last couple episodes.
So I gotta mention, I misunderstood Jared's curse at first. It said you get 2 hexes. I thought it meant that he got 2 disadvantages in addition to that. And so I was, damn, this is really harsh, I feel like, for one of these things. But then I realized I was wrong with that. So thankfully they didn't break Jared's game over that.
You said you wanted curses. Last time you were like, we not enough curses. Yeah.
All of them on Jared. Of course it happens to Jared as well, just from a story structure. I feel like it's a continuing storyline throughout this season where Jared just constantly is getting hexes for whatever reason. He's upsetting people or he's a threat for whatever reason. Fill in the blank here. And now he gets it back to 0. And now he gets just 2 more just for being Jared. And it's like, it's just, I feel bad for the guy. It's really unlucky. But you're right, Ty. We did say we want more curses. I mean, there's a lot of curses in this episode. Jared's next visit is not a curse, but there was a lot. It's a double whammy in this episode. But that's episode 9, and we're gonna jump to episode 10. And this one starts off pretty quickly going into the immunity challenge, I feel like. So we'll start there. This one was interesting. You had 2 groups of 3, 2 people on the sled. then do the sunflower puzzle, and then the three remaining people do I call it the Spencer's puzzle because Spencer did on CBS Survivor in like 10 seconds, but it's a 5-piece puzzle. I've seen it before. I've never done it. Nathan, would you rather do the sledding in this or that sunflower puzzle?
I would rather do the sledding. I was hanging out with my nephews earlier today who are 4 and 5, and I was struggling with the Paw Patrol puzzle. So I think the sledding would be more up my alley.
Ty and Jason, what did y'all do? Did y'all do the sledding and or the puzzle? I can't remember.
I did the puzzle, and I will tell you that had my sledders been a little quicker, I would have won that challenge, or at least that portion.
Okay.
I was so close. I almost won.
Yeah, we were not close. I did the sledding. I mean, I think we got there last. Yeah, Matt and I don't know. We weren't very coordinated with it. We got in a groove at one point and then we lost it. On the sledding, you kind of get the momentum going again. It was tough. So, yeah, not a fan of that challenge. That one wasn't great for me.
I wanted no parts of the sled. No parts of it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you basically were doing sleds with the flippers, so I think you had enough by that point.
That's true. The flippers, yeah. My feet had enough pain after that. They were about 3 sizes too small, those flippers.
That was my next question, Jason, because I've done like scuba diving before in my time, and those flippers are tight even when you're in the water. When you're in the water, you don't feel it as much, but when you put them on beforehand, it's tight. So I have to imagine it feels very tight, uncomfortable when you're not in water, just walking around on land.
Yeah, I wear size 12 and they were size 9 flippers. So that was an interesting handball challenge. Interesting to say.
And Nathan, this was an interesting moment where this, of course, can happen in a live game. It's happened on CBS where at first Jason calls Ashley as the winner, but we realized that there was a puzzle missing or it wasn't quite done properly, and they have to go again, and then Jared ends up winning. Now, Nathan, I've been someone who has had to make challenge calls before, and some that the players didn't like. So this is always a tricky situation. But I think Jason was genuinely remorseful. You could tell he kept apologizing, and production played it off really well, I thought.
I actually, I'm normally not the biggest fan of puzzles as a viewer. This is one of the few, though, that I actually really enjoyed watching this, because I feel like it has so few pieces that you could kind of look at it as a viewer and go, oh, he should have put this here. This belongs here. I will say all these puzzles look exactly the same after a certain point if you're the one spotting this. So this kind of error is inevitable, 100%.
Right, and to your point about it's fun to play along with this type of puzzle, it's the same logic that a memory challenge would have, because viewers at home can play along. That's one of the few challenges, and there are certain puzzles where viewers could play along with a lot, not necessarily like the big ones, you know, where you're making a cube or other sort of shapes, but this one, to your point, yeah, you can play along with that, so that was fun. But Jared ends up winning immunity. Good for him. I don't know.
The Yankees don't suck as much as some may claim.
The Yankees don't suck. And I don't know if he desperately needed it, but considering he got votes in the last tribal, pretty good for Jason here, or Jared here. And he ends up sending himself back to the fortune teller's booth. Nathan, what did you think of the advantage Jared got this time around?
Oh, yeah, I actually found this really interesting, this whole section about you could choose to sit someone out of the challenge. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I feel like we saw this previously in the pre-merge. Did someone have this, or did we just hear about it pre-merge?
Veronica had it.
Okay, because
it might have not been the exact same thing, but something very similar where she could have swapped the opposite team's sit out person, or like said, no, Jason, you have to play with your flippers if you were going to sit out with your flippers there. Yeah.
It was interesting to view because when I first heard about that advantage, I thought, well, that won't translate to the post-merge, but now apparently it does, which is pretty interesting. I found it really interesting from Jared's point of view that he says he will not use this because he just doesn't think that's an honorable way of approaching it. And he also had an interesting statement. He said, the way I play my games relies a lot on immunities, which I hadn't known that was part of his strategy beforehand. So even though this will almost certainly not have any ramifications, I did find it to be an interesting character moment from that point of view.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things. It's to be seen if Jared sticks to this. You know, he could get in a situation where he wants to use it, but as of now, we're going to take his word for it that he will not use it. Going back to Big Brother, like it's the same mindset I think people have when they say, I don't want to backdoor anybody. That's just not how I want to play the game. I want to, if they're my target, I'm going to put them on the block and let them fight for the power veto. This is kind of the similar thing because this type of advantage can be really lethal. If it's like 5 against 1 or 6 against 2 or something, if you sit someone out of the challenge and their only hope and prayer is winning, they can't compete, and then they can just get voted out unless they have an idol. So it's pretty lethal in the post merge. I enjoy it for that reason because it is brutal, but it is interesting that it fell to Jared, who is maybe the person who's least likely to play it. So that is interesting. And like you said, Ty, it is interesting it came back into the equation when Veronica had it, because I did remember that. It may not be the exact same one, but it's interesting which ones come back into play and which ones are kind of one and done. I would love to ask production that at some point, what the thought with that is, but they might not answer because maybe we'll see this twist again. And if so, I don't blame them. But we're going to get to the vote here for the tribal scramble. Ty, I want to ask you how quickly, or okay, let me rephrase it. Did a lot of people know that you had put those 2 votes on Jared? Because I know Matt gave a confessional about, but was it pretty obvious to the rest of the tribe that that's what you had done?
Actually, I was gonna ask Jason this because I honestly don't know. I figured that people had told Jared that it had happened. I figured he knew. Because I mean, Kai was in on it, Jabbar was in on it, and they didn't go along with it. I didn't at this time know that Jabbar had like slid in as the 5th, like Baka, and he was like in on that, like that was where he wanted to go. So I didn't know how close he was with them. And I think he let it slide. Jason, I don't think you said like straight up like, oh, Ty did that, but like you didn't deny it, or you know, the bus was gonna run over me one way or another. But Jared was just like straight, and Sandra, they were just like straight, like acting like they had no idea. Sandra acted like she believed me when I was like, oh no, I was just keeping them comfortable when I was talking to them. Like, so yeah, I was like really watching to see if there was any change in their demeanor or the way they talked to me, and I didn't notice any. So I was like, okay, maybe we're good still. But no, we were not.
No, they knew. Everybody knew.
Yeah.
I don't know how it all went down, but I can remember vividly walking back from that tribal council, and at that point we're all like whispering, and everybody knew that you had, because you had tried to bring in other people, right? So it was already like, oh dang, he really tried to do it. And then it's like, well, he's got to go next. Like it was literally like pretty much like everybody against Ty, but keep it quiet almost. I mean, at least from my perspective, just because people were like, oh, I can't believe he did that. And it was, so what they were saying to you was more to keep you comfortable, I think. But, everybody knew that you had taken this swing.
Ty, from your understand, go ahead, Ty. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, from your understanding, who did you end up voting for this tribal? I apologize.
Ashley. Ashley was who I, that was the name I was given. So I was like, okay, we're still on Ashley, right? At this point, I like, because everyone was acting like it was still fine. I thought that maybe like they knew, but they were like, we'll get Ashley and then it'll happen. At this point, if I had tried to scramble and thrown it on anything else, I don't think anything would have happened no matter what I had done in this situation, unless I like found an idol or something. So, at this point it was, and then even then we would have gone into another tribal and then I would have gone home anyway. So, I think my goose was cooked at this point. And everybody was aware, and it was just, trying to lay low in case something else happened. Was it
obvious to you that you were going home, or was there like a 50-50 or even less chance you thought that you'd survive this one?
I kind of thought maybe I would survive this one because people had been talking about Ashley for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 votes at this point. It was like a while that had been coming up. So I thought that maybe Ashley was gonna go still at this point. I know she's good at puzzles. She almost won the puzzle there. So when she won it, I was kind of like, oh no, now it's really gonna be me. But then when I was like, okay, Jared won it, maybe Ashley will still go. So that's just kind of what I was banking on. But as soon as my vote was the first one that came up of the Ashley rating, I was like, and then my name was next. I was like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be a landslide on me. Like I was like, okay, it was either one or the other. They either knew and were going for it, or I had played it off. So, and I figured that the odds of that were low.
Jason, I found your position in this vote really interesting because here you are, you had to give up a long time ago that your tribe is not going to be the one calling the shots in the merge because you just don't have the numbers. And B, it's been Veronica, it's been Alejandro, and now we have you're presented with this vote of tie. Everybody's essentially on board with it. Did this feel like to you at the time that the tides were turning and maybe this wouldn't just be a Baca steamroll? Or did it more so feel like this is just a one-time thing? We want to get rid of Ty because we don't trust him, and then it's going to go back to the steamroll. Which one did it feel like to you?
I really abandoned any thought of old Loa versus old Baca as soon as the swap happened. As soon as I got in with the 4, and I just was praying that Jabbar would make it through into the merge so we could link back up and kind of connect the dots. I was never comfortable on Loa to begin with. From the minute I got my buff, something was just off for me. And then obviously getting votes in that first tribal council was like, okay, this is not where I belong. So when I got swapped, it was actually, even though I was on like the lower end of the swap, it was a blessing in disguise because I was able to find people that I really felt comfortable with. So I had already shifted mindset. Like I was not going to protect Loa except for Jabbar at that point. And it was going to be the, Kai, Matt, myself, Jordan. And if we could bring Jabbar in, that was going to be our 5 in my mind. So I was okay with anybody else. I mean, quite frankly. And really, I felt like, and this could just be revisionist history, but I felt like I was just kind of moving with Matt at that point because Matt had protected me when he brought me in. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to move with Matt. And him and I would talk, about who we wanted to go. But I really kind of just leaned in on what his thoughts were and kind of just went with his game at that point. Because I was still kind of in that brittle position, right? That old Loa, Baca. And I was trying to show him like, listen, this is who I'm with. I'm with you guys.
So this wasn't even so much for you, old Baca and old Loa. This was, I want my alliance to go forward. We're going to vote off anyone who's on the outside, regardless of where they started at the beginning of the game. Okay.
Yeah, I had already abandoned all of the pre-game or the early game pre-merge stuff, pre-swap stuff, actually.
It's very interesting. I'm glad I got your insight on that. Nathan, is this, I guess now that we know with the context of Jason's alliance, perhaps this question isn't too relevant, but is this always a risk to vote out someone like Ty, who is trying to work with old Baca people, versus Ashley, who is in a lot of people's minds a wild card? Is this a risk, or was this move fine ultimately?
Based on the format, I think it was fine.
Right.
Yeah. These post-merge rounds, I feel like, especially in Angelica or in these short-term games, I feel like the post-merge rounds in particular go by really, really fast. So I feel like it's a pretty safe bet.
I agree.
Don't you think?
Well, no, I agree. Like I said, it's tough. If there's already heat on Ty, go that direction. You can vote it. In theory, you can vote out Ashley the next round. It's hard when you want to vote off an OG tribe member when you have other members of the opposite tribe, but it's the move you got to make sometimes, or at least you feel like you need to. But Ty, unfortunately, you get your torch snuffed here, and before you get to go have a nice meal and a shower, nobody can move because we have to go right into the next tribal. Host Jason, I love the way he does it. First, everyone thinks, I love Kai's reaction. It's almost like she thinks something's wrong. It's like, what? Because host Jason's just like, I'm going to go, you guys just stay here. I'm going to go get something ready. And then he comes back and he takes immunity back from Jared. And there's no challenge even. It's just right into the tribal council. Nathan, we've talked about this a little bit before on past podcasts, but what in general do you think is the right way to approach these live tribal councils, if there is anything particularly right to do?
I have no clue. Do you have any ideas here? Because I'm at a loss.
I'm not too sure what to do. Let me ask this, Jason. What did you do in this live tribal that you thought worked out?
I think we had a plan. You always have like your next couple, right? And obviously, winning immunity could always change that if the person that you're targeting. But if you plan at least one or two in advance, you've got some idea of who's next. And it was always going to be Ashley was always in that, as you know, ever since she came back, she was always in that like borderline, could go next. So I think it was like an easy vote because it didn't messy any waters. Nobody's trying to make a big move in a live tribal because it's just not enough time to really coordinate. And I think that's kind of what happened here. It was kind of like, okay, like we know who's always going to be next, so let's just stick to the plan, Matt. Yeah, like wink, wink. Like, okay, that's what we're gonna do.
Right. And, it really helps if you have that plan beforehand. You don't have to worry too much, especially because there was no immunity attached. So there wasn't even Ashley getting immunity. So you didn't have to switch up the plan live. Like you said, if Ashley had an immunity necklace, maybe you would have to change the plan to do somebody else. And that could have been a little chaotic, but that worked out really well. No, Nathan, the only reason I asked is because I feel like sometimes, I don't know if I've seen it, but I feel like there is a chance where if you just act like a fool, essentially, and you act very erratic and chaotic, you could paint a target on your back. You could be whispering too many times. People could be like, why is Parker doing all this nonsense? That's not what we agreed to do. Why is he talking to so-and-so? Why does he need to talk to so-and-so? I don't know. I feel like there is a chance if you don't get voted out because of erratic behavior at a live tribal, it at least could hurt your standing in the game, or at least your perception. People are like, wow, he's a really paranoid player. I don't respect that, kind of thing. Wouldn't you agree with that, Nathan?
Oh, definitely. On top of that, you're in front of the jury, so it can kind of hurt your image in that way. This is actually the second season in a row where we've had this, where last time we talked to Jason about this, he said the purpose of a round like this is to kind of smoke the advantages out, the idols out and all of that. Do we like this as moving forward? Do we like having this rapid fire round, would you say?
I think it's interesting. I do like, I forgot he had said that, and I'm glad you brought that up. I like the idea of trying to make people feel like they need to use their advantages when otherwise maybe they felt comfortable sitting on them. So I do think that's an interesting tactic. I do think it's unfortunate that there was no chance for immunity, but that's how it goes. So that might be the only tweak I would make. Maybe just do a very quick memory game at tribal council or something you can do there. But as far as going right into it, I have no issue with a back-to-back tribal. It catches people off guard. It doesn't allow for a lot of unpacking from what happened in the previous vote. It kind of shows who's more paranoid, who's going to do more whispers, and who's kind of cool as a cucumber. So I think that's kind of fun. But I don't know I want to hear the panel's take on this, about this twist going forward in future seasons.
If I was Ashley, I'd be pissed to not get a chance, knowing that you're on the bottom and have been on the bottom. She really never had a lot of a chance after never going to tribal council after coming back in until the merge. Never got to use her idol or really build any of those bonds. So it was always an easy vote, never tested that relationship. So it was easy for us to say Ashley, it's easy for the other team to say Ashley. So if I was her, I would have been really frustrated by that, by not getting a chance to do a puzzle or something that would have gotten me safe, because it was a foregone conclusion she was going. It could work great to sniff out advantages, or everyone could hold on to it because they already know for sure where the vote's going. So, it works both ways. And I totally understand it. It's a 48-hour game. There's got to be double tribals. There's got to be these twists. But if I probably would have been mad if I were in her situation. Personally.
Yeah, I agree. If you're on the right side of the numbers, it's great because it's just another round that you survived and one less person. But if you're the person that's still trying to, build trust or dig yourself out of a hole, um, it's impossible to do that in a 3 minute live tribal. So it really does kind of leave you optionless, I think. So it's great as a viewer, though. I love it as a viewer when I'm watching other ones. I'm like, this is awesome. But as a player, it depends on what side of the spectrum you lie on and what side of the boat you're on, really.
Very true, and it's one of those things where it's like if you're in Ashley's shoes, it would suck, and you'd be very angry. And then it's like, well, what if this is a very chaotic round? What if it's a 4v4? And when you're a production putting the twists in place before the season, you don't know that it's going to be a very easy foregone conclusion before they even sit down. For all you know, it could be the most chaotic round, or it could be a slightly chaotic round. But that's the dice you got to roll with it as well. So it is one of those things where you don't know what's exactly going to happen, but it is unfortunate to lose Ashley here. Nathan, I was really glad that Ashley got to come back. You always, I guess, from an underdog and a personal, as a viewer, you want the battle back person to not just revolving door go out immediately after. You kind of want them to get a couple extra rounds in the game. So I appreciate Ashley's fight at the end. And one other thing we didn't mention, it didn't matter too much, but I did at least like that she had that idol that had expired pre-merge that she got, tried to at least make people think it was real. Obviously no one bought it, but hey, she used all the tools she had. So that's better than just not doing anything with it. So I liked Ashley. She was a fighter.
Yes. She was part of that whole pre-merge fiasco with all the returnee and the idols and all of that. So that was a really fun element. She almost won 2 immunities in a row, which is pretty yeah. And I would say as someone who came back in, very, like you said, very easy to become a revolving door situation. I thought overall pretty good outing. I'd say a pretty memorable one too.
Yeah, I agree. Battle back ones from the pre-merge are always tricky. There's the revolving door ones. There's the ones that maybe make it a little bit, but you don't remember. There's the ones that make it a bit, you do remember. And then there's the Holy Grail, and they make it all the way to the final tribal. Win or not, they at least made it to the end. So in a fan-made game like this, I do like when players get the chance to come back into the game. It's so quick. Something unlucky could have happened that could have gone them out. So it's always fun to watch. But Ashley is going to go here, and I don't think there's anything else from episode 10 that I'm missing. Nathan, was there anything you wanted to bring up?
About the twist, the double tribal.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of the discussion has to revolve around, as a player, it's clearly bad. Like, there's no good part of it as a player. As production, it's all good. It's beautiful.
Right.
It's your ideal round. So I think when you're looking at this, you have to question, what does the viewer like more? And
right.
I think it comes down to personal preference.
Oh yeah, it's personal preference, and it's like you said, it's very much what do the viewers want to see, what do the players want to happen for them, and what does production need to do to get it done. Like you mentioned, Ty, it's 48 hours, people have to go, you have to speed it up, not cut corners, but some things will have to be fast forwarded just a little bit. So it is one of those things where, depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer, but it completely makes sense from production standpoint. I've been on production for Real Foot. We've done fast forward rounds before, not exactly the same as this, but similarly. So they have their place. It is hard as a player, especially if you're not on the numbers. But like I said, depending on who you ask, I'm glad you brought that up, Nathan, because that's really what it comes down to. Depending on who you ask, people have different preferences. But Ty, Jason, was there anything else from episode 10 you guys wanted to reference before we get to closing predictions?
Real quick, I had a couple quick things, and I won't.
Sure.
They won't be long. The first one is, we talked earlier about Jared and like his character arc, and I just wanted to give a shout out to production, because Jared was that guy, that muscle guy, that when we pulled into the parking lot, Ty, you probably remember, he pulled out his entire travel kit, all of his deodorants and lotions on top of this car. And we're like, who is this dude? And he's got these muscles and he's just doing this thing. And we're like, this guy is
no sleeves to be found. Yeah, no
like
sleeves at all.
Right. And then now you see the progression of like who Jared is as a person. And he is an incredible human being. And and you see that. And the second thing with production is Ashley, because Ashley was somebody that was very quiet. And then you see a couple confessionals where she's like, how come I'm telling everyone the truth and no one believes me? And that's really the truth, right? Like that's what happened in the game. Like I didn't feel it from Ashley, and she was absolutely telling me the truth all the time. And for some reason, maybe because we just never connected early on in that old Loa, I told you I was kind of uncomfortable in old Loa, and that kind of set that up. And it was something that she had to deal with from start to finish. And in a double tribal, if no one believes you and you're telling the truth, it's one of the most frustrating things in the world. But that's just I appreciate the editing team putting that in. I mean, it's just phenomenal work they've been doing with these character stories. So that's all.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I totally agree. That's why I'm fighting like hell to try and get Jared out, is because he's like, this dude is gonna win immunities, and he's like so nice, and he's such like a friendly, like genuine person. They're just like, damn, this guy's gotta go. But yeah, so it's the editing and the production has been awesome. It's been so much fun to watch back. Matt's like voting confessional, where he pretends like he forgot what a snake was and says that and calls me a snake. I love it. I loved it. I had so much fun watching. I was like nervous to watch it. I told we were doing a Survive reunion in Tampa when the episode launched. So I told everyone there, I was like, oh shit, my boot episode is tonight. And they're like, throw it on the big screen. Let's put it up. Let's watch it. So, like it's all fun. It's all fun in games to like watch you have egg on your face and watch how everything happens and see the story, what people are talking about behind your back and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun to watch both of these episodes, and I'm so excited for the rest of the season because it's a wild ride and it's going to be fun all the way to the very end. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
So that's all we have for episodes 9 and 10. Jason, so correct me if I'm wrong. Your current 4 is yourself, Matt, Kai, and Jordan. Am I getting that correctly?
And yes, and Jabbar.
And Jabbar's a 5th. Is he like in your mind? Is he a clear 5th, or is he higher up?
He's high. Jabbar was my number 1.
Okay.
I mean, from the very beginning, and I told him that. We had some very private conversations off camera, and I told him like, I got you. Like he was gonna be my guy, like final 2, whatever it is. So in my mind, I got through the merge, I got through the swap, got these new friends. I'm bringing Jabbar in. He's gonna be our quote unquote 5th, but really, me and Jabbar are gonna do damage moving forward in my eyes.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure it's clear because before we go, this is the part where Nathan and I are either going to look big-brained or we're going to look very foolish because we're going to make predictions. Nathan, let's try to predict who's going next, if you'd like. We haven't done that yet. We got 7 players left. I think, given he got votes from Ty, and Jason was even acknowledging he was a threat, just didn't vote for him when Ty did, I think Jared is pretty in trouble next Tribal Council if he doesn't win. So I think Jared is really on the bubble, especially if he's not in that alliance Jason was just describing.
Who do you think is in more danger, Jared or Jared's sleeves?
Well, Jared's sleeves didn't make it to the game, so
okay.
I don't even know if
they're on the edge of extinction.
Yeah, they're still on they're still in purgatory with the wine and Kurt and friends.
The man had 3 different of the same like tight sleeveless shirt in the exact colors of the buffs, like the exact purple of Baka, the exact green of Loa, this like weird light green, and then a red one for merch. I was like, my guy, like you are doing the most right now, and you didn't wait to pack this until you got to the campground. Like, come on, man.
Did y'all know what the tribe colors were beforehand to color coordinate?
He must no. Some people did. So some people must have asked, like, if I was gonna wear a color, what color should I bring, or something like that. Yeah.
Because I love to coordinate, so I love that he was that prepared. But like it's funny that he had right down to the exact detail or like shade of coloring in the shirts. Because I noticed that I was like, wow, that's a pretty accurate shirt he's wearing to the buff color, so that's really funny. I didn't know that either. But that's my call, Nathan. I think Jared is in a lot of danger. He's already seen as a threat. He's won a challenge. I mean, it could be somebody else, but that's who I think is in the most danger. What would you think?
I would agree.
And Nathan, what about Sandra? Where's she falling in if she's not in the alliance? Is she, because I thought Sandra was in a better spot, but she might be in trouble for all we know.
Well, she's definitely not in the alliance or in the PG-13 zone.
That's true.
According to previous comments. So I personally, I hope something happens there. I hope we get Sandra the whole time. I'm rooting for that outcome.
Well, I'm rooting for this because last time we did, last season we covered, we got to final 7. There was two there's 2 minority tribe members similar to this situation, and they squeaked out to 5th and 4th, but that's where the road ended. But for this one, it seems like at least Jason and Jabbar, mainly Jason, are in a better spot numbers wise. So I'm very much hoping we can get a reversal of that story, and we can keep going. And whoever wins is whoever wins. But from an entertainment and unpredictability standpoint, it would be very interesting if the Bakas fell apart here. But we'll just have to see how it goes. But yeah, my prediction would be Jared. I'd agree with that. But Nathan, was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we sign out here?
No, I'm enjoying the season still. This has probably been my favorite season we've covered thus far of Angelica. So yeah, all good vibes. I'm excited for the next few episodes.
Absolutely, I agree. This has been a really fun season, and I enjoyed the previous 2 we covered, and I just love that you can see the progression of each game just gets better and better from these guys. The production team works really hard, so all props to them. But that's all we got. I want to thank everybody for tuning in live. We will be back in the future covering more Survivor Angelica content. We're getting to the end. Only, I imagine, 3 or 4 episodes to go before the finale, and we'll be covering all the rest of them. So until next time, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.